What is up, guys? I hope you all are doing safe and well. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my buddy Eric's Erebus watch. Now, he sent this up to me because it's not running well. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at it, see if we can figure out what's going on, and hopefully fix it for him and get it back on his wrist so he can wear and enjoy this watch. So I'm going to flip the camera around, take you guys over to the bench, and we'll get straight into it. Alright guys, so here's a look at the watch. As you can see right now, it's actually running. So what Eric was reporting is that when he sets it down, the watch seems to run just fine. But when he puts it on his wrist and he's wearing the watch and it tilts towards certain angles, the watch will stop running kind of intermittently and then kind of pick back up. But the watch is not keeping good time at all. So let's go ahead and see if we can kind of duplicate that scenario by tilting the watch around and see if we can get the seconds hand to stop running. So we'll just go ahead and tilt it towards the 9 o'clock indice. Go ahead and tilt it towards the 12 o'clock indice and the 3 o'clock ground side. And then we'll tilt it up towards the 6 o'clock indice. And it just wants to stop running. So we'll go ahead and turn it back down and it picks back up. But as soon as you tilt it towards the 6 o'clock, it wants to stop running almost instantly. So my first thought is that there is something actually blocking the balance wheel. So seems like there might be a piece of debris or something else like that just kind of lodged in there, and then when you turn the watch a certain way, it wants to stop running because it's actually getting caught in the balance wheel. The seconds hand's definitely not getting caught on anything. It'll just stop running whenever you tilt it towards the 6 o'clock. So kind of weird. Let's go ahead and take the case back off and see if we can find anything kind of obvious. So if it's something like that, we'll go ahead and just clean it out and we will get the watch back to Eric. If it's not something so obvious, Eric did buy a backup NH35 movement to swap out. So worst case scenario, we will be, swapping over the date wheel onto this movement because this is for a 3 o'clock date window. And then we'll go ahead and get all that switched over, his dial and his handset, and then we'll return him a good running watch. So we'll go ahead and dig into it and see what we can find. And either way, we'll get this watch back to Eric, running better than ever. All right, to get started, I'm going to go ahead and remove the case back. To do that, I'm going to use my case back removal tool. I'll use that to break it loose, and then I'll finish unthreading it by hand. Once we have it all the way unthreaded, set that aside and we can have a look at the balance here. So at first glance, I don't actually see anything visibly blocking it. So I'm just going to go ahead and, move the case around to different angles. Make sure that nothing is moving that shouldn't be moving. And then also if there is a little piece of debris blocking it, kind of work it into a position where it's easier to see. Zoomed in here on the balance wheel, still can't see anything. The balance actually seems to have great amplitude. Everything's beating away like it should. So I figured I would try to duplicate that scenario where I would get the seconds hand to stop just like that. Then I'm going to try and turn the case gently so I can have a look at the balance wheel and hopefully view it while it's stopped so I can try to figure out what's actually causing it to stop. So I got the seconds hand to stop again there. And I'm just going to gently try to turn the watch over. This part was definitely very tricky. Got it to stop again. So I'm going to very carefully try to look at the balance, and it's still beating. So what's ever causing it to stop is, just, barely causing it to do so, because every time I turn the watch around, the balance is beating. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to duplicate that scenario where I'd have the seconds hand stopped and actually be able to see the balance wheel stopped. I definitely tried to turn the case in several different angles, always trying to get that balance wheel to stop. So I wasn't able to visibly see it. So I figured I'd go ahead and remove the rotor here so I could have a better look at the balance wheel. Also, while I was trying to view it, the rotor would move sometimes and kind of obstruct my view. So I figured it'd just be better to remove it so we could get a better look at the movement here. So I'll set that aside so we can have a more clear view of the entire movement here. So I'll go ahead and zoom back in, and we can look at the balance wheel and see the escape wheel better. I did try to get the balance wheel to stop. Unfortunately, I was not able to figure out what was causing it to stop. On the surface level, everything seemed to be operating just fine. If I had to guess, there's some piece of debris deeper down in the movement, down in the train of wheels, somewhere between the mainspring and the escape wheel, getting lodged in there. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to figure out what was causing that. So I did decide to just go ahead and go forward with the movement swap. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to go ahead and start by removing this spacer on the top here. So get that out of the way. Now I can flip the watch over and remove the entire movement assembly here. So we'll pop that out just like that. Now I'm going to install it into my movement holder. So I'll get that popped in here. Now I'm going to reinstall the crown so I can manipulate the hands. So we'll get the crown popped in. Now I have the crown in, I can go ahead and stack the hands over top of one another. This makes it much easier to remove them. So we'll get those all lined up here, just like that. And we can go ahead and remove the hands. I like to protect the dial and handset with a plastic bag. Then we'll go ahead and pop those off. And then we'll set those aside. Now I can go ahead and remove the dial. To do that, I just use a little flathead screwdriver and I work it back and forth from side to side, just like this. Try to be gentle here, and then we'll pop that off. This is a really nice dial, by the way, as well. I really like that texturing on it. Looks really good. So I have our new movement here. You can tell it's new because of that blue crown that comes from the factory. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to remove the date wheel. Like I previously mentioned, the new movement has a date wheel for a 3 o'clock date window, and our dial has one cut out at the 6 o'clock position. So we're going to need to remove this one and install our 6 o'clock date wheel. So I'm going to get this popped out here, and now we can go ahead and install our 6 o'clock date wheel. I went ahead and removed this from our old movement that was having the issues. So we'll pop this in, and then I'm just going to move that little click there, and you'll see the date wheel backspin a little bit. That's how you know it's engaged properly. Now I can go ahead and reinstall the date wheel guard here. Just going to get this lined up to the best of my ability. So So get that sat on, and it aligns with 2 dowel pins, one at the top and then one at the bottom there. Once you have it set on those dowel pins, you know it's properly aligned, and you can go ahead and start reinstalling the screws. When I reinstall the screws here, I'm going to, install them about 75% of the way down. I'm not going to tighten the screw all the way just yet. I'm also going to do this in a staggered kind of pattern. So what I mean by that is one at the top, and then I'm going to the bottom, and then I'll go back to the top and then finish at the bottom, opposed to going around in a circle or anything like that. So we'll stagger these and get them installed about 75% threaded down. We'll get our 4th one installed here. So we'll get that about 75% threaded in. And now we have all 4 of them installed. We can go back over them and finish tightening them down. And then we'll give them all a double check as well. So that all looks good. Now I can go ahead and test the date wheel functions. So I'm going to check the natural date change here. And what I mean by that is this is how the date wheel would naturally change over while the movement's running. So you just seen it change over there. So that looks great to me. And I'm also going to get out of the danger zone as well, and we'll check the quick set. So I'll pop the crown back in and pull it out one position, and we'll check the quick set. That's looking good. All the gears are moving like they should, and the quick set is working. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the crown back in here, and I'm going to double check the natural date change one more time. I just like to double check that stuff, make sure everything's working as it should. Everything looks great. I like to clean everything with some Rodico before I install the dial, just to make sure there's no dust or debris that can work its way down into the movement. So give everything a clean with some Rodico just to make sure everything's all good to go there. And now we can reinstall our dial. So I'll get that set into place and just align the dial feet with the holes in the movement. And then we'll press that straight on, just like that. And I always like to check from the side profile just to make sure everything's sitting flush like it should. So that's all good to go. Now I'm going to cycle our date over to the 16th. That way I know we are at 12 o'clock midnight, and I can go ahead and install the hands. So now we can install our hour hand here. I just like to hold it with some Rodico to align it and get it set into place. Then I'm going to press it straight down with my hand setting tool. And just like that, our hour hand is back on. So I do like to check the hour hand from the side profile here, just to make sure the spacing's correct, and kind of from dead on just to make sure everything's centered like it should be. That all looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and cycle our hand down to the 6 o'clock position. I just like to use the 6 o'clock method when I'm setting hands. For me, it's personally just easier to see if everything's aligned properly. So now we can go ahead and install our minute hand here, same way I did the hour hand. So I'll get that pressed on. I'm going to lightly press it on first. That way I can make adjustments. So I'm going to just use the Rodico and adjust the minute hand there and get everything lined up just like that. Now I'm happy with the alignment. Looks perfect to me. And I'll finish pressing the minute hand on. So we'll get that all the way pressed on just like that. The minute hand is back on. And I also like to, superimpose the hands over one atop another. So we'll go ahead and stack those over top of each other. And now we'll check from the side profile for the minute hand, just to make sure that the spacing is evenly set and both hands are on straight as they should be. So that all looks great to me. Happy with that. And now we can go ahead and check our alignment here. I'm going to check at 9 o'clock. So that looks dead on to me. Super happy with the alignment there. I'm going to double check the date change as well. Looks like it changes over at 11:54. So that's within that, 10-minute window. I'll double check our alignment at 12 o'clock as well. That all looks great. Everything looks spot on. So go ahead and install the second tan now. I went ahead and zoomed in for you guys so you could see that little tiny post that the second tan gets set on. So we will install that straight down. Just like that, we have our second tan installed. And now I like to double check and make sure that the second tan can run under its own power. So everything is looking great there. And now we can go ahead and remove our movement assembly from the movement holder here. So we'll get that popped out and get ready to install it back into the case. So before we install everything back into the case, I'm going to clean everything with some air just to make sure there's no little particles underneath the crystal or on the dial. So I like to be a little thorough here, so we'll clean everything real nice. And now we can install everything back together just like that. So we'll get our case flipped over here, and now I can align the movement with the crown tube. So we'll just give that a little nudge there and get everything aligned. Can reinstall the movement holder here. Love to see a metal movement holder instead of a plastic one. So that is nice to see instead of a cheap plastic one. So now we can reinstall our crown. We'll get that installed. We shouldn't have to cut anything because it's the same movement in the same case. So our crown does engage. Everything is working as it should. And I'll give the movement a little wind here. So that all looks good to me. Now I'll go ahead and get that secondary movement spacer installed. This one is just so the case back can apply tension to the first movement spacer. So we'll get that clicked on as well. Just like that. And I can reinstall the case back gasket. I did lubricate this with some silicone grease as well. This is the original case back gasket. It was still in really good shape, so we're going to reuse it. Like I said, just make sure it's lubricated. So we'll get that set into its little groove. And now I can reinstall the case back. I'm just going to install this hand tight for now, just in case there is something wrong. I can, remove the case back easily. So we'll just hand tighten that for now. And now we can flip everything over and have a look at the watch. I'm going to make sure that the time setting function on the crown all works properly. So that is looking great to me. I'm going to check the date change one more time as well, just to be, sure that everything is working as it should. That all looks great. Our alignment at 12 looks dead on. I'll pop the crown back in, and it looks great. There's no dust or debris under there. Super happy with how it's looking. So I set it down for a while and let it run for an hour or two, just to make sure everything is good there. So this is me picking it back up after letting it sit for an hour or so. I'm just going to double check that we can rotate the watch around into different positions without that seconds hand stopping, just to confirm that we did in fact fix the original issue with the watch. Now I'm sure we did because it was an entire movement swap, so everything is looking good there. Eric did give me permission to wear this watch around the house as well, strictly for testing purposes. Totally didn't have anything to do with me wanting to wear the watch, you know, like I said, for testing purposes only. Just kidding. But Eric was kind enough to let me wear the watch. So I was able to confirm that it is, in fact, running well while it's on wrist. So I'm happy to report that. And Eric has the watch back. He was kind enough to include a few wrist shots. So I'll go ahead and pop them in here. So Eric has this watch back on his wrist and he's enjoying it. And Eric also did pick up a new Erebus Ascent. So here they are side by side. He's wearing both these watches and enjoying them. So I'm really stoked that Eric has his watch back. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.